Hello everybody, and welcome to Alternative Interactions. I'm Gary. Today I've got something a little bit different really for what I do, but not really. Now obviously Mark Carney has been voted in as the Canadian PM, and this gentleman has got a very interesting past and some very interesting connections. Let's put it that way, connections, very interesting connections. And so I had done a bit of research on Mark in the past because of his Bank of England connections and another connection. And the last connection that I mentioned in this thing I'm not going to go any deeper into, but I will provide information. Now, all the information that I'm going to talk about today, all the links, everything from this presentation will be on my Telegram channel, Alternative Interactions. Please go on there. So below my video will be images, links to organisations that I'm going to mention, and work that other content providers, other researchers have provided. So a big thank you to all those guys and all the hard work they've done to enable me to put this together. So this is going to be a chat. There's no slides on this, and I've had to take notes. I've had to take notes because it is such a deep one. We're really talking about a very, very interesting character, and the word interesting I'm using currently is not in the positive sense. Okay, so without further ado, please like, share and subscribe, and we'll get on to Mark, and we're going to finish off as well with a little bit about his brother. He's got a very interesting brother as well, very interesting family, in fact, very. So forgive me if I'm looking down a bit and reading, but and please do bear in mind if I mispronounce or say stuff wrong. It is what it is. So Mark Carney, he was born on the 16th of March 1965 in the Northwestern Territories of Canada. He went to high school in Edmonton. He went to Harvard University, and he went to Oxford University. Very interesting, especially the Oxford one. We'll come into that later. Now his career is very, very interesting, and we will be going into this. He has been a very, very busy boy. Let's put it that way, a very busy boy. Really. So he started his career for Goldman Sachs, the bankers, and he ended up working in London, Tokyo, New York and Toronto, and he was the co-head of the Sovereign Risk Department, and he was the I can't even read my own writing. Oh yeah, the executive director of the emerging debt capital markets, and he was the MD for the investment banking interests. Now these included some very interesting countries that he was involved in. Okay, so he was involved in the South African post-apartheid venture of Goldman Sachs and developing international bonds and the international bond market within South Africa. It's very interesting. So he was one of the first vultures in there at that point when the apartheid finished and the world was suddenly trading with South Africa after the sanctions. In 1998 he was involved in the Russian financial crisis and the bond debt markets and such like of that. So it's very interesting that the collapse of Russia and lots of issues with Russia, he was fully involved in that one. As a young man, relatively young man, just out of university, moving forward into that kind of thing, that's quite heavy. It's quite high up. So 2004 to 2007, he was the deputy minister and G7 deputy to the Canadian Department of Finance. So he was already part of the G7. Which is obviously a globalist connection type thing, the G7 countries, but it is very much a old boys club. So one of Mark's more interesting involvements, and I'm sure those in Canada can remember this very clearly. He was involved with the controversial tax and income at trust at source. So they taxed the income of trusts at source. Now, I don't know anything about that. I haven't looked into it because there's so much other stuff. But I'm sure those in Canada can remember very clearly what he did, and that wasn't very good, because if anything's in these kind of things saying controversial, when you're looking it up, controversial means there was an awful lot of fallout on this one. So in 2003 to 2004, he was the Bank of Canada Deputy Governor. So the Bank of Canada is the Central Bank of Canada. One of the main control mechanisms of the Canadian people. Okay. In 2008 to 2013, he was the governor of the Bank of Canada. And in 2012, Carney was named the Central Bank Governor of the Year by the Euromoney magazine. So he was the Central Banker's Central Banker of the Year. Nice work. This is where it gets even darker. Now, I shared on my channel the other day Monaco 64, and he talks about the Basel banking group, the BIS, Bank of International Settlements, and how nefarious they are, and they are the ones behind the central digital currency, and they're the ones behind many, many things. They also finance both sides of the war in World War II, and even allowed the Germans to, after they invaded the country, they literally gave the Czechoslovakian gold to Germany. Facilitated that, in fact. So these people are not our friends. Really not our friends. And I really do think you should watch the Monaco 64 video on YouTube. It's very interesting, and it's about the Bank of International Settlements and some of the darkness they do, and he has actually done previous shows on that. So in 2011, he was the chairman of the Basel-based Financial Stability Board, or SFB, and the FSB is kind of the overviewer. They look over all the banks. They're the overseers. Okay. But in 2010 to 2012, Mark Carney was the chairman of the BIS, the Bank of International Settlements, chairman. one of the most powerful people in the world for 2 years, coming up with all sorts of nasty ideas financially to enslave us. There we go. He was also in the Group of 30, an international body of lending financiers and academics, the foundation board of the WEF, World Economic Forum. So they were the financial founding part of the WEF. He was part of the Group of 30. Might be worth looking that one up. Carney also attended the annual meetings of the Bilderberg groups in 2011 and 2012. So here we have a man who's fully involved in the financial setup and flourishing of the WEF, and you will own nothing and you will eat bugs and you will like it, to the Bilderberg group, which is one of the most nefarious NGO groups, shadow groups in the world, that is a control mechanism and the shadow government that runs the world. Very interesting stuff, eh? I think we're getting a picture now, don't you? I think we're starting to see a picture coming out. He was on the advisory board of the I knew I was going to have trouble saying this one. Blavatnik School of Government. It's the Blavnatic School of Government. It's basically Oxford University. So if you look up Oxford University, it's Blavatnik. Blavnik or Blavnik School of Government, and it's connected to Oxford University. Remember, he went to Oxford University. And their goals are to teach policy educators, that's those in power, to share the common goal, fundamentally WEF policies. It's very, very interesting that this particular Oxford University side group had somebody very interesting join them very, very recently. That's Mrs. Ardern, Jacqueline Ardern, the ex-New Zealand Prime Minister. They appear to have very, very much WEF-like policies. And they're educating the next round of people to come through. A bit like the WEF young globalists. Very interesting, hey? In 2012, Mark Carney became the governor of the Bank of England. Bank of England is fundamentally second to the Basel. But he was obviously chairman in 2012 of Basel, Bank of International Settlements. So he went from the Bank of International Settlements straight to the Bank of England. Interesting career move, that one, isn't it? And a little footnote for everybody in the UK, Carney was pro-Remain in Europe when we had our election to stay in or out of the EU. He was pro-Remain. As a footnote, our current leader, Keir Starmer, is now signing us back up into Europe. Because, of course, if voting really mattered, they wouldn't let you do it. I understand there are some shenanigans or some issues in the Canadian election of your new leader. I'm not going to go there. But there were always going to be, weren't they? When you have a man with this kind of background, they are going to put their man in the positions that they want. They always have done and they always will do. Okay. So, Carney is a citizen of the UK and Ireland. So he holds passports for UK, Ireland and obviously Canada. Now it's very interesting that Carney's dad has Irish descent and he got his UK citizenship I think in 2018 from memory, 2020, 2018 I think. But to have those two nationality passports I think bars him from being the Prime Minister of Canada. But we won't worry about that. Carney's mum's quite an interesting character as well. Come up with a very big brick wall when you start putting in her name on the internet. Nothing comes up at all. She's been wiped off the internet fundamentally. But her name is very interesting. I was thinking it was stuff like Fitzgerald or Fitzland. She appears to come from either Germany, Dutch border, her family. She's the power behind the family, I believe. Because the power always comes through the female. The female is always the most powerful, generally, in this kind of class that we're looking at. Okay? But please do look her up. If you can. You'll find a maiden name, but you won't find much else. Okay. He's also been the director of Brookfield Asset Management, or is currently director of Brookfield Asset Management. Interesting that the last part of his mum's name breaks down to field. But that's an 850 billion investment organisation. So they've got $850 billion. Pounds, I'm not sure, but it's 850 billion in investments worldwide. Quite impressive, isn't it? Mark Carney is also the chair of Bloomberg Media. He's also the chair of PIMCO, P-I-M-C-O, which is a global advisory board. It's a major investor and sovereign debt foundation controller. He does like his sovereign debt, doesn't he? We saw that in South Africa and Russia. I wonder if he was on the chair or the work he did in South Africa and Russia meant that he climbed a greasy ladder with that one, making sure that certain people made money out of it and certain people didn't. Obviously this is just for entertainment purposes and there's no accusation at all about anything. This is just make-believe and fantasy. So, he's also a UN Special Envoy on climate action and finance. We do like a UN Special Envoy on climate action and finance. And he specialises in anti-oil and gas. I should mention coal as well. Wood burners, anything really that's not carbon zero. He's also the director of the US payment tech firm Stripe. Very handy when you're moving money around. He's also the co-chair of the Glasgow Financial Alliance for Net Zero. This is a UK body which again is anti-oil gas, etc., etc. He's the chair of the Advisory Board of Canada 2020. This is involved in the Centre of American Progress. So this has tentacles into America and is an NGO that affects America. But what is really interesting about this little advisory board of Canada 2020, sounds a bit like Agenda 21, doesn't it? Is who they're funded by. They're funded by the Chinese Communist Party. Not directly, obviously, by the front organisations of. We know he was obviously the Goldman Sachs MD for a period of time. He was the director of, or is director of, David Johnston's Rideau Hall Foundation. David Johnston's Rideau Hall Foundation, and this is a WEF/NGO organisation. Another NGO control mechanism, another finger in another pie from a different angle. All the same energy. Let's put it that way. All the same energy. He was a WEF board member until 2022. He left with no public notice, but apparently is no longer a WEF board member. So not only did he help with the WEF financial situation, he's been a board member of the WEF for that entire period. There is also a picture that I'll be posting on Telegram, and the location is unknown, but it's a tropical beach. Looks like an island. Looks like an island that certain people went to for certain things, because in that picture of Mr. Carney is Ghislaine Maxwell, who is currently in prison for trafficking children. And next to them is Tom Hanks. Or is that Tom Rockefeller? Interesting. That picture will be going up on my Telegram channel, Alternative Interactions. Obviously, I'm not saying one thing or another about that picture and where it was taken, but to have a picture taken sitting there smiling away on a beach with Ghislaine Maxwell does raise questions about the kind of people you're sharing your time with. Because obviously we know he shares his time with Mr. Swab and others. Or maybe not Mr. Swab anymore. Now, Mr. Carney has got a brother. Yeah, Mark's siblings. But we're going to concentrate on just one of his siblings. That's Sean. Sean Carney. Now, Sean Carney's got a very interesting little role. Let's put it that way. And is also a man of influence. So to have two brothers in very influential positions is a very unusual thing, and would warrant further investigation and deeper investigation into who the family really is and who they are connected to. because the last bit that I finish with on here, for those that know, really will go, oh, okay. Now, let's look at Sean Carney. Sean has worked for Goldman Sachs, Merrill Lynch, HSBC. This is the one I really... The Children Investment Fund Foundation. You really need to look that one up. That's the Children Investment Fund Foundation. Again, on my Telegram channel I will have a link to that. Very interesting. Very interesting indeed. Yeah. He's also involved in Telmos Capital, or has been. Now, Sean Carney has also worked for the UK Broadband. UK Broadband. I wonder what they're involved in, energy-wise. As a footnote, my little update and ramble yesterday with the volume going gig all the time was from the cell towers that were around those industrial units, and it was the pulses were coming through and you could hear them in the microphone as I was talking. I had my Bluetooth on, which was a mistake. I normally turn it off because I had the Bluetooth on because I've been in the car, and I was getting feedback from the Bluetooth and the cell towers. I won't be walking that walk again. Interesting, isn't it? We just talked about UK broadband, just out of interest. He is also involved with PCW Cascade. Now, PCW Cascade is a very interesting company. They're an investment and communications company. Chinese investment and Saudi investment company. It's twice China's come up, isn't it? With the Carney brothers. Interesting. But what Sean is really interested in, and this is a big one, he's the Chief Operating Officer, the COO, of the household of the Kensington Royal House or Palace. He is in charge of the royal household of Kate and William, the royals. He's the main man. He calls the shots. I wonder if he's their controller, their handler. Interesting, isn't it? So the future King and Queen of England have him controlling and organising their lives. Those Carneys are a really interesting family, isn't it? When we start digging. Woo-hoo. Now, we're going to end on one, and I'm not going to go into it any deeper than mentioning it. This is a real big rabbit hole, but it's not a rabbit hole, it's a real big one. Mark Carney is a member of the Committee of 300. Now, for those of you who don't know what the Committee of 300 is, you need to look it up. There's a book on it. It's a bit like the Bilderberg group, and it's one of the top of the pyramid groups. We have many interesting members of that. Popes, prime ministers, Rothschilds, and I could go on and on and on. I have a list from 2010 that's probably as accurate as any of the members of the Committee of 300. But as you can imagine, that lists and updated lists are very, very difficult. But we have some very, very interesting characters and names on this list. The Committee of 300 is on par with the Council of Foreign Relations, and the 13, or the Committee of the Crown, the 13. And the Committee of the Crown is nothing to do with the royal family. The Committee of the Crown is right at the top, which is the 13 ruling families fundamentally, that answers to the entity that runs the realm fully. So I'm not certain really in what order they are, but we have the 13, or the Committee of the Crown. We have the Council of Foreign Relations, the Bilderberg Group, and the Committee of 300. And from this we have something called the Trilateral Commission, which Mr. Starmer was a member of for many years. And I have a very interesting picture of Mr. Starmer, who, for those in England, will remember Jeremy Corbyn. And Mr. Starmer was with Mike Pompeo, who was the head of the CIA, as part of the Trilateral Commission, saying that how they would, Mike Pompeo said that they would do everything in their power to stop Jeremy Corbyn becoming Prime Minister. And they destroyed him. The press destroyed him, everybody destroyed him. I'm not interested in who he is or what they are, but it gives you an idea of the power of the Trilateral Commission. And the UK's current Prime Minister, who's a WEF member and Trilateral Commission is, I don't know. But Mr. Starmer's not on the Committee of 300, or wasn't in 2010. So that makes Mark Carney a higher ranking official, because only the elite of the elite get onto the Committee of 300. So with that, I'll leave that, and please research the Committee of 300. Again, we have the Fabian group coming off that as well. Many subgroups, and we also have the Masonic groups coming off that as well. So it's a real big spider's web, and a very difficult one to work out. I mean, I've seen some of the diagrams that people have put together, all these committees and groups, and it's just mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing how many and what they're into and how they're involved. And they sit on these committees, that subcommittee. Really is very nefarious, very. And Canada, your new Prime Minister, is right up there. So enjoy the show. Now, as a leaving note, I will remind you all that you are watching a show. It's a movie playing out. They can't win. They can't affect the outcome. The outcome is set, and we do win. But what they can do is cause as much disruption and pain as possible. And I actually see Mark, his appointment, as a very good thing. They're in a position of panic. Yes, you heard that right, panic. They've had to put in a man of such high standing in the hierarchical system of the control mechanism as the Prime Minister of Canada? As a little analogy, is that the boy who sticks his finger in the dike hole to stop the flood before the dike collapses, the dam collapses, and the water comes flooding through? I think so. I think so. Next 3 months or so, we are going to see huge disclosures, huge amounts of stuff coming out, and these people are in deep, deep trouble. So, do I think he'll be there for very long? No, I don't. I don't think any of the current political system will be there for very long. But please do not fear or worry about the future. We have this. But it has to play out for those people that are still asleep. They have to be shown. They have to feel it. Until you see and feel something and it affects you, you can be very, very... Well, what can we do? It doesn't affect us, it doesn't affect us. But when it really starts to affect you, and when you really do start feeling it, then your attitude starts to change. And you start to look at things. Remember, observe, do not absorb. Stay in the centre. Observe this stuff. It's very interesting. All I've done is babbled and given you a bit of information about a man. Does it matter? No. But it's interesting. And it's part of the sub-story of the plot. So with that, have no fear. Love, light and blessings, everybody. And thank you very much for watching. Especially if you got to the end of this one. You're stars. Thank you very much. Bye, everybody.